Why would a young child like Laura want to be in a place like this? Brookhaven Hospital was completely devoid of liveliness and dominated by an uneasy stillness. There wasn't a soul to be found anywhere. The lights in the entrance hallway were all switched off, giving the area a dim and hollow atmosphere, as if the building had been abandoned for years. Despite this, the halls were immaculately clean and free of dust or debris, like the staff had been working tirelessly to keep the place in pristine condition, and quite recently too. It was a fairly large hospital with plenty of room for the numerous patients that should have been resting in their beds. Where did everyone go? James began searching through the ward on the first floor with Maria huddled uncomfortably close. He caught the faint scent of Maria's perfume, bringing up guilty recollections of his late wife. Their search came up empty. Laura obviously ducked into the hospital because she knew they were on her trail, so it wasn't likely she would risk hiding on the first floor. Let's keep going. Okay. As they climbed the dimly lit staircase, James began to think. He had been so intent on catching Laura that he hadn't noticed before, but now he couldn't help but wonder. Why hasn't Maria asked anything about Laura? She knew he was here to look for Mary, but he hadn't mentioned anything about her or about the letter Laura was carrying. And despite this, she unquestionably followed him on the hunt for the little girl, as if she knew that it was important. Even though she certainly seemed to be a nosy person, this seemed a little much, especially in a dangerous situation like this. Having reached the second floor, James absent-mindedly took a left when they came to a branching hallway. He stole a quick glance at Maria, who was still clinging nervously to his arm. If he was so worried about her motivations, why didn't he just ask her right now? He tried to form the words, but he kept hesitating, like he was afraid of saying the wrong thing. It was that uncertainty, among other unpleasant emotions swirling in his mind, that always made speaking with Maria so difficult. It was so strange that— "Look out!" Maria's frantic cry shocked James out of his thoughts. She yanked him backwards, nearly pulling him off his feet as a long object swung through the darkness. The metal pipe that was clearly aimed to bash his brains out made a dull metallic sound as it met the linoleum floor mere inches in front of him. Whoever the attacker was, they meant business. The unknown assailant pulled its metal pipe off the ground and swung it again, but James was prepared this time and blocked the strike with his own pipe. The sharper, ear-piercing clang of metal hitting metal shot through the empty hallway, and the force of the impact sent a jolt of pain through James's arms. "Who are you?" James shouted through gritted teeth. With their weapons locked together, his opponent was forced to stumble closer, into the flashlight's beam. The attacker had the figure of a human, enough so that it would appear perfectly normal from a distance, but at close range its true nature was revealed. It was a monster in a white dress, masquerading as a nurse. The proof was its ugly face, swollen beyond recognition, and its gray, decomposing skin that gave it the appearance of a walking corpse. The odor it carried was repulsive, like rotting garbage. The creature's grotesque exterior concealed surprising strength, but its decaying body was still too fragile to fight for long, and it soon fell to the ground. "Hurry! Finish it off!" Maria shouted while standing a safe distance behind James. What a silly thing to say. Of course he planned to kill the monster, and quickly too, as it was already trying to pull itself back to its feet with its weak arms. But if that's true, then why am I so reluctant? It's just a monster, something that's going to kill me if I don't kill it first. But what if it really isn't? Could it really be a normal nurse who was unfortunate enough to catch a disease with an infected patient? And now, driven to a state of madness, she wanders the hospital's halls, too scared and confused to tell if people are trying to help her or hurt her. And if anything was to be gathered from her appearance, she's probably suffering immense physical pain as well. If James looked at the situation that way, it almost seemed pitiable. Then at most, I'd be doing nothing than a mercy killing, right? It was as if Maria were shouting words of encouragement, and she knew how conflicted James felt. The nurse was standing again, with the rusty pipe still clamped firmly in its gray hand. He steeled himself, swallowing all his feelings of doubt. It has to be painful for anyone that disfigured to live. Monster or human, the best thing would be for it to die. James raised his steel pipe above his head and swung down with all his might. The nurse's skull cracked under the crushing force of the blow, and its legs crumpled, sending it sprawling across the floor again. Only this time, it didn't stand back up. James stood silently for a moment, staring at the slain monster. Dark blood pooled under its crumpled body, joining the small splatters that had sprinkled across the hall when he had struck it. I made the right choice, didn't I? Even if he could make himself believe that, the whole situation left a bad taste in his mouth. He felt Maria's hand on his shoulder. James, you did what you had to do. Maria offered words of consolation, once again as if she knew exactly how he was feeling. While the first floor was devoid of life, the second and third floors were crawling with aggressive nurses as well as more strange mannequin-like creatures. As he stood over the body of yet another blood-stained nurse, a paralyzing thought came to mind. Perhaps, like the insane nurses, all the residents of Silent Hill were infected with the same diabolical virus. It wasn't too much of a stretch to picture a biological weapon leaking from a secret military base and polluting the town's water supply. The nurses and mannequins were at least human enough to be recognized as being female, so perhaps the armless monsters used to be men, their bodies having deteriorated after so much time. If this really was the truth, then it should have made it feel easier to kill them one by one. It would have been an act of compassion ending all their suffering. To think that I'm really helping them, that's a lie. Only an excuse. Like I'm trying to run away from something. But what is it? James, wait up, Maria said, snatching James's attention away from his gloomy thoughts. She was beginning to fall behind and had resorted to a slow trot while still trying to keep up. He'd almost forgotten that Maria was with him, even though he was supposed to be protecting her. I'm exhausted. Maria's face was pale, and she looked like she was having difficulty breathing. It's just a slight cold. I wasn't feeling great this morning either. I guess I got distracted when I saw that everyone was missing. James frowned. He was getting a feeling of déjà vu, bringing back memories that carried sorrow like a curse. This was just like the beginning, when Mary had said it was just a slight cold. You better rest for a while. Driven by anxiety, he hurriedly searched for a place for her to lie down. After stealthily examining the room SO3 and finding it to be free of monsters, he invited Maria inside and carefully helped her to the bed. I'll go ahead and at least make sure the third floor is secure. Then I'll try to find Laura. I think she knows where Mary is. Are you sure you'll be okay here by yourself? Yeah, Maria answered in a faint voice. Before James could turn to leave, she grabbed his hands. Hey, James. If you find Mary, what will you do then? I don't know. James shook his head quietly. The seeds of uncertainty were planted, and James began to doubt himself. While passing through an empty office on the first floor, a stack of papers happened to catch his eye. The contents of this paper still weighed heavily on his mind, like corrosion slowly eating away at his thoughts. They were doctor's memos on a certain patient. The potential for this illness exists in all people, and under the right circumstances, any man or woman would be driven, like him, to the other side. The other side perhaps may not be the best way to phrase it. After all, there is no wall between here and there. It lies on the borders where reality and unreality intersect. It is a place both close and distant. Some say it isn't even an illness. I cannot agree with them. I'm a doctor, not a philosopher, or even a psychiatrist. But sometimes I have to ask myself this question. It's true that to us his imaginings are nothing but the inventions of a busy mind. But to him, there simply is no other reality. Furthermore, he is happy there. So why, I ask myself, why in the name of healing must we drag him painfully into the world of our own reality? It seemed to be more of the doctor's personal opinion regarding the patient's mental illness rather than an actual medical diagnosis. Who was the patient these papers referred to? Could it be talking about me? James shuddered, but instantly rejected the idea. No, that can't be it. But all these strange things happening in Silent Hill, the vanishing people, the weird monsters, all those things are just too wild for someone to just imagine. Again, he shook his head in denial. Maybe the reality was just as absurd as the fantasy. After all, Maria, Angela, and Eddie have all seen the monsters too. Even Laura had a letter from Mary. Such a young child couldn't possibly have known Mary for more than 3 years. At any rate, he should be searching for Laura right now, not wandering around and sulking. Knowing that that girl could prove Mary's survival dispelled most of his misgivings. After the 3rd floor turned up empty, James decided to check the roof. He was surprised to find that night had fallen without him even noticing. Had he really been searching that long? Actually, the hospital corridors were so dark that standing out there in the dead of night really didn't make much of a difference. Between the fog and the darkness, there wasn't any view to be seen. Even the stars were completely obscured. James walked along the rooftop perimeter, shining the flashlight at any place small enough for a little girl to hide. There was no sign of Laura, but he stumbled on what appeared to be a piece of lost property, sitting near the guardrail. He picked up the object, a diary. Its cover was tattered and soaked with rainwater. On a sudden curious whim, he flipped to the first page. The words were a bit blurred, but still readable. May 9. Rain. Stared out the window all day. Peaceful here. Nothing to do. Still not allowed to go outside. May 10. Still raining. Talked with the doctor a little. Would they have saved me if I didn't have a family to feed? I know I'm pathetic. Weak. Not everyone can be strong. May 11. Rain again. The meds made me feel sick today. If I'm only better when I'm drugged, then who am I anyway? May 12. Rain as usual. I don't want to cause any more trouble for anyone, but I'm a bother either way. Can it really be such a sin to run instead of fight? Some people may say so, but they don't have to live in my shoes. It may be selfish, but it's what I want. It's too hard like this. It's just too hard. May 13. It's clear outside. The doctors told me I've been released. That I've got to go home. The diary ended there abruptly. It must have belonged to one of the patients. If it happened to be from the same person from the other memo, James's concerns would be wiped away. Clearly the patient had regained their sanity and was discharged from the hospital, meaning it couldn't possibly be James the memo was talking about. But what if the patient relapsed? What if they forgot the past and fell back into their world of delusion? What if their reality was to endlessly wonder an inescapable nightmare? A loud noise rang through the air, as if to embody James's frustration. It was the grating noise of something metal scraping across the concrete of the rooftop, like someone was dragging something heavy, and even before James turned around, he knew who it was. "Come and get me, asshole!" James challenged, pulling his treasured gun from his belt. Unlike before, he felt no fear facing the pyramid monster, though his confidence came from the fact that he was able to repel the monster twice before. The biggest reason was that he now doubted the creature's very existence. There's no way this ridiculous bastard could be real. But could it really just be the product of an insane delusion? Either way, James was soon going to find out. Completely defenseless other than the gun in his hand, he exposed himself before the imposing monster. If it was just a delusion, then the nasty hatchet would be nothing more than a papier-mâché toy. The hollow blade would pass right through his body without leaving a scratch. The monster sluggishly lifted its blade, aiming to slice its target in half. James bravely faltered and he recoiled backwards, only to find a chain-link fence at his back, preventing any chance at escape. The fence's metal frame was rusted and brittle, and it began to creak under James's weight. All of a sudden, the structure gave way and tipped backwards off the roof, taking James with it. The blade of the monster's massive sword grazed the tip of his nose before he was swallowed by darkness and fog. I hope you guys enjoyed the first video in my Halloween countdown. Now, I chose this because I've been reading the Silent Hill series almost as long as I've just been doing my narrations, and I've gotten requests to continue it, and it's not like I ever stopped it. I'm just finding a right time to record, and that right time is apparently now. I hope you guys enjoyed. Only a week till Halloween.